Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to another manager review segment where we are going to be looking back over the performance of Ronald Koeman as Everton Manager from June 2016 to that fateful day in October 2017 after we got beat 5-2 off Arsenal. I'm joined by Terry and Thomas, as well as Mike from the Unholy Trinity Podcast. So we'll start at the beginning when he was appointed manager in the summer of 2016, less than 6 months into Farhad Mashidi's period of ownership. Despite the previous season being disappointing, I think there was a lot of optimism for the future, and speculation was rife as to who would succeed Roberto Martinez as we went into the June. Mike, we'll start with you on this, on your return. How did you feel when Koeman was announced as manager? Was he the man you wanted, Mike?
Very much like Marco Silva, obviously, after. He was the man that was much touted. There was a little bit of backwards and forwards with Southampton. I remember a lot of their fans saying at the time he wouldn't leave them for us, thinking they were on some kind of pedestal. I don't know why. But yeah, you saw with a lot of managers, you do sometimes get carried away with how they were as a player. Ronald Koeman was a world-class player. Let's make no mistake about it. So when you hear that name being linked with the club, there was initial excitement, and when he was announced, yeah, there was definitely optimism there that we could kick on and he could do something with obviously the money of Machiri, which had come in 6 months prior. So we thought, yeah, we could kick on and hopefully he could start getting us up to the upper echelons of the Premier League.
Certainly, and of course when he did come in, he took Southampton to sixth, I think, the previous season. So obviously that was where we were aiming for on a short to medium term basis. How confident were you that Koeman could obviously turn around a squad that was underperforming under Roberto Martinez?
I think, like any manager, you've always got to give them that time. I find myself to be fairly patient when it comes to Everton managers, unlike some. And again, you understand why that is. But I always thought, let's give him a little bit of time. You know, it's the first time really we've come into any kind of significant money. Let's not waste it. Obviously, we know what happened after that, but yeah, I still think he would be able to do something and build a side. Obviously, from his managerial past, he hadn't really done a great deal in terms of his managerial career. Hadn't really proven anything, to be honest. But even so, you do get sucked in, as I said before, by the naming of who the man was. And I thought, given a bit of time, we could kick on and definitely start to push up and start to finish higher in that sort of top six of the Premier League table.
Yeah, obviously we'll move on to you now, Thomas. When he did come in, obviously the start was really good, wasn't it? You know, I think we won the first 5 out of 6 games. We drew with Spurs and then won 5 in a row, which was obviously got everyone's tongues wagging a little bit. What did you think when we got off to that start early on in the season?
Obviously, I was immediately quite impressed. You know, he'd come from Southampton, which had also traditionally had a bit of a squad. They tend to be a bit of a selling team, obviously, basically Liverpool's B team. And he came to Everton, and obviously he had that trio of Lukaku, Barkley, and Delafeu, which is now, we look back at, it had a lot of promise, and some people are disappointed it's not there anymore. But obviously, I think the team he inherited was already quite strong. Obviously, Gareth Barry was getting on a bit, but then in terms of that front three, he kind of inherited a front three that was end up there, you know, as one of the best in the league. And obviously Delafeu and Lukaku had that link up, that partnership where they had like the most assists and goals. I can't remember what the exact record was, but it was one of the highest in the league. So when we got off to that start, so when we got off to that start, you know, it was definitely exciting and promising things to come. But obviously Koeman's kind of downfall came as soon as he lost Lukaku, really, and never really had a plan B. But the definite start was, you know, it was hopeful at the start, and kind of what we'd seen at Southampton in glimpses, just maybe not over a consistent period.
Obviously, we will get on to what happened after Lukaku left, but for the duration of that season, you know, we started off very well, and then we had a bit of a blip, didn't we? I mean, what did you think when, obviously, we had a really poor spell where I think we lost to Southampton, which obviously there was a lot made of that, and we got beat 5-0 off Chelsea, and then it was a pretty dreary spell, if I remember rightly, in the November and then Koeman obviously put up his red Christmas tree, and that just sent everyone round the bend as well. So it was a bit of a weird time. By this point, we were only like 3 months into the season, his first season, and people were starting to question it. Did anyone start to have reservations? And I'll ask that to the three years. Did any of you think that it was a bit, it was a bad appointment at this stage, or were people still going to give him time?
No, I think with any managerial appointment, you can't make that call that early into a tenure. Like, obviously, we'll come on to when he did move on and the reasons for that. Don't we think of that? But even with Marco Silva, last season, before they had the turnaround after the big, the long break in the second half of the season, I don't think you can sack a manager unless you look like you're going to go down. I don't think you can sack a manager in his first season. There's too much that isn't like, even, the cement's not dry or anything they're trying to build yet. So no, I didn't have any issues with Koeman at this point.
Well, certainly, I think, and then obviously we go on a bit of a better run. We beat Arsenal in the December, and the Christmas period, which is pretty rare for Everton, was actually pretty decent, save for the Derby defeat. And so obviously we go into the January, and the form from sort of January to March was very, very impressive, if I remember rightly. We were beaten, granted, a lot of mid-table teams, but every side that you'd expect us to finish above, we were beaten. And obviously Lukaku was probably in the best form. Just touch on one game in particular before we get to the next season. We have to remember the 6-3 against Bournemouth. Was anyone at that game?
Yeah, but it was one of those games where, when you think about the Koeman era, if you like, that's one of the games that you look back on, obviously, really fondly, and it was a crazy game. So it reminded me a little bit about the Blackpool game, obviously years earlier.
I was at both of them.
Yeah, similar kind of game, just backwards and forwards. But you had obviously Lukaku banging in 4 goals, Ross Barkley obviously playing well, and it was just one of those games where, a bit like a basketball game, and that was one of the ones that really stands out. But like you say, at that time, we started we were beating teams that we should be beating, which is always, we always look back on seasons and say we should have picked up points at X, Y, and Z and didn't do. But we started to do that, and obviously we had a decent spell, like you say, in that part of the season.
Man City as well.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's the one that obviously sticks out with the Tom Davies goal and obviously Lookman's goal, etc. But there was a few highlights in that first season. Obviously, with us finishing, in the European places, you then think, listen, we can kick on here. We've got a good young side, some real quality. But then obviously the transfer window, which obviously I'm sure we're going to come on to, happens and things start to change.
Okay, well, we'll move on to that sort of issue with what happens and when the sort of winds of change started blowing, if you like. Obviously, we started to bring in players first. Jordan Pickford and Davy Klassen were the first two to come in. What was the general feeling, do you think? We'll go to you here, Thomas. What did you think, like, when Pickford and Klassen was announced? Like, those first two signings?
I was quite impressed, to be fair, because obviously Pickford had a decent season with Sunderland, even though Sunderland were disastrous that year. But his name was, amongst, the kind of the top clubs in the league. Everyone was looking for a young English goalkeeper. So I was impressed that we managed to get him. And then obviously Davy Klassen had just come off that Europa League run with Ajax, where they lost in the final to Manchester United. So it seemed at first we were picking up players who we might not have been expected to. Definitely the first couple where we've seen names, in the past where they've been linked with us, and also like people, like your Chelseas and your Arsenal, people like that, and just go somewhere else and they don't come to us. So it almost seemed like a bit of a change of tune when we started bringing in players who would, because obviously you always get the links where it's, Leicester, West Ham and Everton, we all get linked to the same players. It doesn't really matter. But those first couple of transfers, we were signing players who were linked to us, but also, clubs higher in the table, which was surprising, probably definitely a change of tune from what we've seen in the past.
I think the big one, the one that everyone was sort of gritting the teeth over and we were sort of biting our nails. I remember Sandro was linked with Real Madrid at one point, which is insane when you think about it now. But obviously, we ended up getting Sandro. He was one of the next signings after that. What did everyone think about Sandro? Terry, what do you think?
I think the same then as I think now. It was, you can't blame the club for going for that. It seemed like, a no-brainer. Like, there was a lot of ills in this summer, a lot of poor deals made, a lot of bad investments, but I don't think this was one. Okay, they did give him wages that were too high. The club were played like a fiddle by his agent. These Real
Madrid and
Atletico Madrid as well were linked with him and what have you. But at 20, whatever he was old then, 20 years old was he at the time? He's a young player.
He wasn't old.
Yeah, he was a young player who just scored 14, 15 goals in La Liga. And he has like a £5 million release clause. It just was an absolute no-brainer. You've got to take a chance on that player, and he could come good. If we hadn't have given him the wages that we give him, then it wouldn't be a big deal. We'd just move him on. But it showed the naivety which haunted us for the whole window and is still haunting us now, that we were just throwing money everywhere. I don't blame the club for going after Sandro. It didn't work, but it's
the wages we've been saddled with. That's the issue with the deal.
Yeah, I do blame the club for making it impossible to move him on, because if he hadn't have been given them wages, I still think we would have got him, because let's be honest, Atletico and Real probably weren't going to go in for them, but we fell for it, didn't we?
That's it, yeah. I mean, I think that's what I was actually going to move on to next. Is obviously this is a Ronald Koeman review, but what part did Steve Walsh have to play in Koeman's tenure and the sort of signings that we brought in? Do you think there was a bit of like button heads maybe there, like players coming in that one didn't want, and did that kind of undermine the transfer window?
Yeah, definitely. I personally think that of all the villains of this piece, I think Koeman is the most innocent. Now, Koeman obviously was, he had some hand in it, but he's the first team coach. He's the one who's got to put the players on the pitch and make a team out of them. And our transfer business was the most scattergun, unjoined up mess you'll ever see. We're still paying for it now. How can you blame Koeman when his top scorer, one of the league's most effective strikers for the past several years, leaves, and then what do you go and buy him? Like, he gets
Sandro.
He gets a kid, a gamble. That's fine. Get him and someone else.
An old Rooney.
Yeah, and a washed up Rooney, a kid who you took a gamble on, and a loads of midfielders who all play in the same position. It was just, it was
insane, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this may come to be almost poetic, given what we know now and our general opinion on this player. Terry, I'll reserve this for you especially. For me, the moment when I realised we'd lost the plot was when we bought Gylfi Sigurdsson for 45 million, knowing that we already had bought Rooney and Klaassen. That was the point where I thought, we haven't got a clue what we're doing here. We've lost the plot. I'm not sure if you second that, Terry.
No, not at the time. I was a big fan of Sigurdsson. I would have been fine with Sigurdsson and Klaassen. I think you could have accommodated the two of them, but you couldn't obviously accommodate, Rooney as well. You couldn't accommodate, Vlasic as well. All these players who play in like the sort of number 10 attacking midfielder position. I felt at the time that Sigurdsson was a good player and he was a good buy. Obviously, I don't think anyone thought he was value for money, the money that we were spending, but I think everyone was just excited to be buying players. It's just, we spent that long without spending any proper money that the second we've got it, we start buying, we're just buying like attack right centre. It's intoxicating. Everyone was pleased, but then when it came to putting it on the pitch, you saw the first game of the next season. He had Klaassen on the right, Sigurdsson on the left, and Rooney behind the striker in a 4-6-1.
Calvert-Lewin at wing back.
Yeah, when the players got on the pitch, we had all these like sort of attacking midfielders, but absolutely no pace in the whole team. I think at one point they said the fastest player was Jagielka, which tells you everything. I'm sure this
is a Jagielka who just turned 35.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, Koeman, I don't think was a good fit for an Everton manager, where long term, big picture wise rather. But I do think the bigger story is how let down he was by the transfer business. He's the coach. He doesn't sign off on the players. Who I think there was about 3 or 4 people who were signing off on players that summer, and I think Koeman was the most high-profile victim of that, because what else could he have done if you've got no strikers anymore, but you've got 5 midfielders in the same position?
I just thought it was insane what we'll do is then we'll just run through all the signings that summer and who do you think actually signed these off. I'll let you all jump in on this. We've got Pickford and Klassen. I reckon those guys were players who I think Klassen was definitely a Koeman pick.
Yeah, I'd say Klassen for Koeman.
Yeah, I'd say Pickford was more of a Walsh one.
Pickford was a Bill Kenwright one. Bill Kenwright signed off on Jordan Pickford 100%. That's definitely a Bill Kenwright.
Nah, bring Rooney back like when he was clearly over the hills. Definitely a Kenwright signing.
Rooney is the most nails on Kenwright one of in history, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Sandro, that seems like Steve Walsh thinking he's pulling off another Riyad Mahrez, and then it's Sandro.
Well, there was pictures of Walsh watching him, wasn't there? At a Seville match when Malaga were away to them, and pictures were circulated of him watching a Malaga player, and obviously it turned out to be Sandro, so I'm going to go with Steve Walsh for him.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them, and I think it was fitting that he went to the Sevilla game as well, because he was watching Sandro and going, tell you what, we should sign him and loan him there in 6 months' time.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Gylfi Sigurdsson would be Mashiri.
Yeah, that'll definitely be, throw big bucks at anything, literally. Michael Keane will be Walsh, yeah.
Walsh, definitely, yeah.
And obviously, I think because of the Southampton connection, it has to be Koeman, who unfortunately saddled us with Cuco Martina.
That's got to go down as one of the most. I mean, he was versatile. Obviously, he ended up playing left back, but I mean, he was never a good footballer. He was just kind of put in there.
He's only versatile because he's equally crap in every position.
Yeah, he just plugged gaps. He was never a good footballer. I don't really get what we were doing that whole time with him, but yeah. Obviously, he's still here. I don't know why we're talking about him like he's left. He's still under contract at the club.
It's always worrying when you sign a player and the opposition, the team that you're signing them from, their supporters are on Twitter. Like, when you buy a player from abroad and you just see and they're all like got crying, laughing face emojis. Well, we didn't need any translation when Southampton were all their heads off that we bought Cuco Martina, and he was like their third choice right back.
Yeah, I think I remember that's kind of why I was so depressed on the live deadline day show last year when we got a Iwobi for 35 million and all the Arsenal fans were just ripping us. I just thought, I mean, I don't think Iwobi's that bad, but it's obvious we've had our pants down there, and again, it's a sign that maybe that sort of big spending culture that Mashiri's brought, maybe he's still not really hell-bent on letting go of that just yet. He seems to always want to put his hand in his pocket, which, fair play, as an ambitious owner, that's great, but obviously there's financial constraints that we've got to work with, and certainly in the summer of 2017, we didn't do that. I think
Koeman came into the club at an unfortunate time for him, because it was a fairly new structure bringing in Steve Walsh as the director of football. It was the first time we'd had money in, how many years? Well, since like the 1980s. I mean, like it was ridiculous, really. And I think it was an unfortunate time. And I think if he came in now with the structure we've got now, obviously he won't be coming in now. But if he had come in at this point with we've got more security now, the Marcel Brand is more careful with his money, I think it would have been a lot better. But that kind of free firing. We've got money, we've got a director of football, let's buy whoever. I don't think that was really good timing for a fairly decent manager, to be fair.
It's worth remembering as well that Steve Walsh was only a chief scout. He wasn't actually a director of football, so he was probably out of his depth. And I think the lasting legacy of Steve Walsh will be his briefcase jaunt in Northern Italy, where I don't know what he done. I don't know what he had in the briefcase, but clearly
he was linked with 8 players, wasn't he?
Yeah,
we were going to come back with 8 of Inter Milan and AC Milan players, and that was the most exciting rumour ever.
Yeah, and we came back with nothing.
Probably for the best, because we're letting him off with 2 of his worst signings, Schneiderlin and Balassi.
Oh yeah, we haven't even got on to the ones that happened before that. I mean, Schneiderlin's they're both still here. And Balassi is here now because he's had his loan cancelled.
Hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
My God, it really was. I mean, I was talking to a mate about this last night, funnily enough, about do you know when people talk about clubs and banter eras? This was the height of it. Obviously, that summer of them, we buy everyone, we think we're going to do bits, and then we just have the most depressing season going. Obviously, we'll have to finish off by looking into the early stages of that season and what got Koeman the sack. At what point did you decide? I'll go through the 3 years here. When did you decide that enough was enough with Ronald Koeman?
I'll jump in then first if you don't mind. Then it's
Mike.
difficult. It's difficult, isn't it? Because obviously didn't start that season well at all. But I remember sitting at Old Trafford fairly early on when Lukaku scored in the 4-0 win, and Valencia scored a pair after about 4 minutes, and we had a couple of chances in that first half. Rooney and Sigurdsson were the two sort of who missed the chances. But I think even at that point early on, as I say, I'm as patient as they come. But I sat there just wondering what he was actually doing, and the formation of the side, the players that he was picking. Again, it goes back to the transfer window and trying to sort of shoehorn players into a formation, and it was never going to work. So even that early on, against for me an average United side, they weren't going to put up any kind of treason. That for me, and that was disappointing. But obviously, as the time went on, obviously the Arsenal game was a killer, wasn't it? The 5-2. The Williams fighting the fella coming down to see with his kid and stuff like that. That was sort of the highlight of the Koeman, or the end of the Koeman reign for me. And it's sort of that pissed my whole sort of 17-18 start of the season.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a difficult start of the season. We reeled off some of the names there. We had like most of the top 6 in the first 2 months. Do you ever think that sort of got held against him a bit? Do you think he was harshly treated in that respect, or did he have to go?
Sorry, mate. Yeah, I know what you're saying, because we had similar, obviously, with Silva as well in terms of who we're playing. I think with Koeman, he had that season before and did fairly well, didn't he? And you just thought we were going to kick on, and you're going back to the transfer window. That was the massive sort of nail in his coffin almost, and like we just said, he wasn't sort of the whole reason to blame for the whole thing. Steve Walsh, Ken Knight, Machine, whoever you want to put a portion of blame to. But I thought we would have kicked on and given the Arsenal game, the 5-2 at home, even we're against Arsenal side, give them more of a game, and we didn't do, as I say, United away, be more competitive, and we weren't. So as much as we were playing sort of top 6 sides, for me, he still should have done that a little bit better.
Certainly,
I think it was a bad start of fixtures, to be fair. But was it that Burnley 1-0? Was it that season when it was kind of in the middle of it all? And obviously you can't blame him for losing the games that he lost against the top 6. But that Burnley game, it was just hopeless. I think everyone understood at that point. I think the problem stretched further than we've just played some good sides. That Burnley side was absolutely nothing. It was at 1-0 at Goodison with a Jeff Hendrick goal. I mean, that was awful. I think at that point we all knew.
We stood there and made them look like Barcelona, and no one put a tackle in.
Yeah, I think at that point we knew that was it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it came sooner than any of those ones that you have said. It was the game before United. It was when we got beat 3-0 off Atalanta. It was when I made my mind up. I just remember we looked an absolute mess, completely disjointed. And obviously, it only went on to get worse. Like you say, the Burnley game was probably the worst of it. Even though it was the Arsenal game that sealed his fate, the Burnley ones are the one I remember where it was really, really dour. And there just didn't seem to be any hope. Terry, do you want to give your word on it before we finish up on Koeman?
Yeah, well, what was the question? When did we decide?
When did you decide you'd had enough of Koeman?
I never did. I honestly, I agree with everything you're saying. It was terrible. The Atalanta game, the Burnley game, awful performances, awful results. But I didn't blame Koeman as much as everyone else did. I'm not saying he did well or anything, but I genuinely felt that given the same run of events that happened for Unsworth and Allardyce, we would have just done the same thing. I think if Koeman would have got to January and bought even the same players, Walcott and Tosin, I think we'd have done exactly the same that we did do, and just won a few more agreeable home fixtures and made better use of having Walcott in the team and Balassi at a bit of pace. and I don't think we would have been that much worse off. I'm not saying we was good, but I remember thinking at the time, no manager's going to come in and suddenly make these players fast, or Ashley Williams, not an idiot, and so on and so forth. So I never did, think Koeman's got to go. It's Koeman's fault. I didn't really argue against it when it did happen because it was a bit hard to at that point. But if I'd have been in charge, I would have stuck with him, just given the circumstances around it.
So a different answer from everyone there. That's an interesting one. I think it's fitting really that it should be me who comes up first, the one who's got the least patience. But yeah, just before we finish, we'll have to touch on one thing that came to light after Koeman left, and that's the story about, I think, when Graham Sharp gave him a book on Everton's history and he threw it in the bin. Were you aware of that?
I've never heard of that, no.
I'm sure, but one of the Everton ambassadors, like a club icon like Sharp or Graham Stewart or somebody, gave him a book on to read about Everton's history and he threw it in the bin.
Not great if it's true, but I've never heard that personally.
I'm gonna have to do a bit of research here. I'm sure I might be making something up here. I'm pretty sure it happened.
I mean, maybe it did, but it's one of those things you could probably do if you're winning. If we win this derby, Ancelotti could set fire to a book like that if he wanted to. But if you're not winning, you can't do that.
God knows I can't find anything, so I'll have to look into that. I might have made that up in my head there, but I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a bit of a Koeman detractor, so that sounds about right that I'd make something like that up. But I'm honestly convinced that I heard that somewhere. But yeah, there you go. I'm not sure how much truth there was in that, but it was a disappointing season anyway, the way it got off to that sort of start. I think that defeat against Arsenal left us about 17th.
So we dropped us to the bottom three, I think, didn't we, after that game?
Bottom three.
Sure we did, yeah.
But so obviously, that as soon as Everton go into the bottom three, there's instantly a lot of anxiety. I think people who've been scarred by the 90s, like, thankfully I'm not one of them. I don't think any of us are we?
I am. I know I don't look like my age and all that. I look about 23, but I was there for both Wimbledon and Coventry. But that's it. It's a fear factor, isn't it? Once you start floating around there, that happened obviously to sort of Marco Silva as well. It happens, doesn't it? And you don't want to be, and we shouldn't be anywhere near those positions. So once we start sort of getting sort of the bottom 4 or 5, then the manager unfortunately will always be looked at.
Yeah, obviously that happened, and we just have to finish off by asking, what would you say Ronald Koeman's legacy is at Everton?
I'll go in first.
Go on, mate.
I think most people thought, I mean, out of the past, couple of managers, we've been through a few in the past few years. I think I don't want to make any bold accusations here, but I think people have warmed more to him than people like Marco Silva. Marco Silva never looked really like he had a clue what he was doing when we went down, this season. But with Koeman, you still kind of believe in him a bit, as Terry was saying, like, you never really gave up on him. So I think out of the past few, people are more endeared towards Koeman, apart from obviously the red Christmas tree. But I mean, it was still wasn't ideal. And I don't think anyone's asking for him back anytime soon. But I don't think out of everyone that we've had in the past couple of years, he's the absolute worst.
Terry?
For me, his legacy will just be when he came into the club, saw that a left back was number 8, and he went absolutely nuts and took it off him to Ross Barkley. No, I think the lasting legacy of him will be that picture of him on the touchline where he looked like Phil Mitchell. It's like that's what they got to do him. When we first saw him, he was in his villa in Spain drinking a Corona, having a great time. He'd just been announced as the manager, and he wasn't even like here, like not a care in the world. And then when it was almost time to go, he was on the touchline at Goodison Park. I think what was the game?
It was the Lyon game in Europe.
Yeah. And he looked absolutely like like a corpse, didn't he? He was like a bloated ginger corpse.
That's a classic. What about you, Mike?
He's a little bit of a sort of bluff for me, Koeman. It seems really strange, as I said. Like when he was first touted to coming in, and when he signed the contract, I thought, fantastic. What a player he was. Let's hope he can kick on as a manager with us. And it just, that first season was decent. It was almost expected for me because with the side that we had, I always thought, we should be knocking down top 7. Make no mistake. The sides outside the usual top 6, we should have been top of them. So the way that it panned out, it's a little bit of a blot, I think, on the Everton managerial landscape. But like we've said, was he to blame 100%? Of course he wasn't. That transfer window will always be the thing that we look back on and think, if we could have done something different during the Koeman era, could it have been different going forward? If we would have got that window right, could he have kicked on with the management style that he's got? Look at him with the Dutch national side, and they have progressed under Ronald Koeman. I know they've got a decent talent pot, but they have progressed compared to where they were. So could he have taken us forward? But yeah, it's a shame with Koeman because, as I say, he did bring a bit of excitement, but unfortunately, I rate him higher than Sam Allardyce.
Obviously,
which might be well. In some people's eyes, some people love Allardyce. I don't know why, but he's a little bit of a bluff for me.
They're not welcome here anyway, if they are.
I think that this is a unanimous decision that there's no Sam Allardyce approval in this show.
It's a shame we couldn't have done the Sam Allardyce here. We
did that one a couple of weeks ago. So if you're watching, check that one out as well, because that's obviously that's very fiery. But yeah, for me, I think Ronald Koeman, his legacy for me is the amount of mistakes that were made. Obviously, like Mike just said, not necessarily his fault, but a lot of mistakes were made, and mistakes that, sadly, the legacy is the mistakes that we're still paying the price for. Players who are still on the books who we can't shift. And that'll always be what I remember, unfortunately, like that era of bringing in too many players on too much money, and we've still got a couple more years to shift them all out. So, unfortunately, again, I'm with Mike there, a bit of a blot, but, there was good memories as well. So there you have it, guys. That's the end of the Koeman review. Let us know what you thought of Ronald Koeman's time at Everton. He was a bit of a divisive figure, as you can tell from this show. Definitely comment. Let us know your opinion and your memories of his spell in charge. Give us a like and a subscribe too while you're at it. And thank you for watching on the Toffee Blues.